From what you're describing, it sounds almost like, political theater, political games. Do you think the American people or the American voter appreciates this? Because controversy surrounding Hunter Biden and Joe Biden was prevalent right before the election 2020 in October, and Joe Biden still won. So do you think this will have any impact on 2024?
That's a really interesting question and a problem for the parties. Let me answer your question directly. Does the public like this? No, they do not. They are not happy. Even the Democrats are not happy that Joe Biden is likely to be the nominee. We know that from polling. We know from polling that people are not happy with the prospect of a repeat between Biden and Trump. The majority of the American people think we've got to have better choices than this. And we have a primary system which which favors a candidate who has a strong, say, 35% commitment in his party, and the rest of the party is split, which is the case among Republicans now. And so we have a very dissatisfied public. If we didn't, you wouldn't see movements like no labels, and you wouldn't see candidates like Robert Kennedy, who's kind of a very quirky, to put it mildly, very quirky candidate, getting a lot of support in the Democratic Party. You wouldn't see Cornel West perceived as an actual threat if as a third-party candidate to the. We have a political system that is in deep trouble, and it's not just the two parties. There's been a slow but steady erosion of trust in virtually all American institutions, including not just the president and Congress, but the media. I mean, if you went to CNN's website yesterday, and I went to it again this morning, you couldn't find a story on the website. Now, they did some on the news itself. You couldn't find a story on the website about all the issues we're talking about. They did not mention the Devon Archer testimony, which was devastating testimony. It's just not there. The story is not there at all. And I went to the Fox News website to see where they played the Trump. It's not quite the Trump indictment. This was a superseding indictment, and picked up a lower level guy who went to court. And it was like the 30th story there. So people feel like a lot of the news organizations are themselves political partisans. They're actors. They're not reporters in a neutral sense. So there's a loss of confidence all across the board. That's bad for the country.
Something that I've never seen is almost like a Groundhog Day when it comes to politics. And that's where we're sitting right now, because 2024, the way it's shaping up, the way polls are looking, we do have a long way to go. I do want to preface that. But it is looking like a 2020 rematch. How do you think we got to this point?
I hadn't thought about the Groundhog Day. It's funny because I really don't want to see that movie again. But it was good the first time, that's for sure. How did we get to this point? It's almost impossible to displace a sitting president. So Biden himself may decide not to run. We just don't know. He says he's running, but he's not doing a lot of the things you would do if you wanted to run. So why not say, well, I'm not, because you become immediately a lame duck president, you lose your influence. All the energy shifts to whether the nominee will be Newsom or somebody else, right, in the party. So that's how we got to it on one side. By the way, you said Biden won, and I agree. I'm not an election denier, but I would say it was more that Trump lost. That is, I think a lot of the voting in the 2020 election was a vote by the general electorate against Trump. So how come he could still win in the Republican Party? Because he has uh, about 35% or so of the party that are truly committed to him. When he said, I could shoot a gun down Fifth Avenue and it wouldn't bother my supporters, he was right. And so a, a lot of Republican insiders, pollsters, politicians, and so forth think he's probably the weakest candidate Republicans could run, or certainly one of the weakest they could run in a general election, but he still might get the nomination because we in the Anglo-American system have what's called the first past the post system of electing people. If you get 30% of the vote, you don't get 30% of the representatives to Congress, if that's your national vote. I think it was Ross Perot got something like 19% of the total vote in the election against um, when he ran, and he didn't get a single electoral vote because he didn't win a single state. And it works like that in most of the Republican primaries. So if Donald Trump finishes first, even if it's with far less than a majority, if the other vote is spread out, if there's not a coalition that uh, congregates around one candidate or maybe two, uh, then um, then Donald Trump could win.